Welcome to This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast, episode 3, a forum to discuss sports, politics, social issues, religion, which we will take all very seriously. Well, not too seriously. Let's just get straight into it, shall we?
Act 1, Environmentalism.
There's an old saying that birds of a feather flock together. The older one gets, one realizes how true this statement is. Once people elect their echo chamber, their social groups, their political groups, they often tend to start not just thinking alike, but also looking alike. This uniform, if you will, is part of their social identity. Nothing in my mind personifies the moral, the social, the political manifestation of the environmental movement, as well as the television program Whale Wars. That's right, Whale Wars. In 500 years, the Wikipedia entry for environmentalism in the 21st century will simply say, "See Whale Wars television program." If you've never watched the program, let me set the stage. As you may be aware, dear listener, whaling was once a very important part of the world economy. Whale oil in particular was an important element of the Industrial Revolution. As is the norm, humanity progresses, technology progresses, whale oil, whale blubber, whale meat becomes less and less necessary as part of the industrial economy. As is also the norm for humanity, people address whaling probably about 50, 60 years after it is no longer a necessary element of the industrial world economy. Let me summarize the agreement. Hey, we've killed almost all of the whales off of planet Earth. We really don't need them anymore. Let's stop doing it. Practically every nation on planet Earth signs on to such an agreement. But one nation isn't so ready to sign on. You see, in Japan, whaling is still a very important part of their economy. Not so much for industrial uses, but whale meat is a delicacy. Whale meat is both highly sought after and extremely expensive in Japan. So as a stipulation to agree to this world treaty, Japan demands a sustainable quota for whales. What does that mean exactly? Well, whales are still very much a mystery to us human beings. So there needs to be some number of whales that can be sustainably taken each year in order to study the species. That all makes sense and is agreed to by all the participants of the treaty. Now, Japan has one of the most modern and efficient whaling fleets that's ever existed. Let me emphasize the word fleet. Japan does not have numerous whaling vessels that go out independently and try to locate and kill whales. No, Japan has a coordinated, organized fleet that works together to locate, kill, and process whales on the water. Again, without going into too much detail, they have ships to go out and hunt the whales, kill the whales, and then those ships drag the carcass back to what is called a factory ship. On the factory ship, the whale meat is immediately processed and packaged for distribution once the factory ship reaches the Japanese coast. It is an organized, methodical operation. Well, in light of the treaty that the world has adopted, how does Japan get away with using a highly efficient, highly organized killing machine in order to hunt down these whales? How do they masterfully weave in and out of the loopholes of this treaty? Why, they simply slap the words scientific research on the side of the factory ship and call the entire endeavor a scientific exploration. That's right. They simply slap the words, in English mind you, scientific research on the side of the factory ship, and that's it. That is the masterclass in deception. Slapping words on the side of something doesn't make it so. Miller High Life is an alcoholic beverage. Miller High Life is an extremely poor alcoholic beverage. Written on the label of any Miller High Life product are the words, the champagne of beer. This is not a true representation of the product. Simply slapping the words, the champagne of beer, does not make Miller High Life the champagne of beer. Miller High Life is one of the few alcoholic beverages that one can consume that while consuming it, in the process of consuming it, one feels hungover. That's the effect that the alcoholic beverage has on you. There's no promise of a high with consequences to be realized later. You start to feel hungover while you're drinking it. Likewise, slapping the words scientific research on the side of a whale killing machine does not make it a scientific exploration. As a consumer of information, this piss-poor attempt at masquerading the operation as a scientific endeavor insults me. Who's going to come to the rescue? Who is going to provide justice for these whales? It's the environmentally conscious crew of the Sea Shepherd, a conservation society to protect whales. How, you might ask, is this crew assembled? Let me set the stage for you there. They park a ship next to a dock and hang a huge banner over it saying, "Let's get crunchy." Douchey-looking hipsters with sensitive hats come crawling out of coffeehouse hovels like some post-apocalyptic zombie movie with a whispered war cry, "Save the whales! Save the whales!" The all-volunteer crew takes to the high seas to do whatever they can to obstruct the Japanese whaling machine. Did I watch this show to laugh at these people? Did I hate watch the program in order to see the Sea Shepherd crew fail? No. My mea culpa to you, dear listener, is that I was rooting for them. That's right. I actively rooted for them. Once again, scientific research? Really? On its face, it's such nonsensical bullshit that I had no sympathy for the Japanese whaling fleet. In addition, the actual process by which the Japanese take the whales, kill the whales, precludes there being any possibility that it's being done for scientific purposes. If one has any question about this, you need only go to YouTube and type in Japanese killing whales. Let me give you the overview. Japanese whaling vessel finds whale, shoots it in the head with a harpoon, lets the whale tire itself out by trying to escape from the whaling ship with a harpoon in its head. Once it is sufficiently exhausted, the whale is brought alongside the ship, whereby someone gets right next to the whale, is standing right overhead with an elephant gun. That's right, an elephant gun, and proceeds to shoot the whale 8, 10, 12, 15 times with an elephant gun. For those of you unfamiliar, an elephant gun is not a precise weapon. It is a large caliber rifle designed to, that's right, kill an elephant with one shot. Now, I'm not sure what the hypothesis is of the experiment with these whales being performed as part of this scientific research, but if it is, what are the effects of shooting a whale multiple times with an elephant gun, I don't know that you need to perform that actual experiment, but so many times to understand what the effect is. Like any other animal being shot multiple times, you've blown the goddamn thing to bits. They drag the carcass to the factory ship where it is immediately processed for its whale meat. So yes, I'm rooting for the crew of the Sea Shepherd. After watching multiple episodes of the program, over multiple seasons, it is as if they are actively trying to turn me against them. My inner monologue from any given episode is as follows. Narrator voiceover comes on and says, "The crew of the Sea Shepherd has lost sight of the factory ship. The captain calls a meeting of the crew to break the news." Picture then the crew in a conference room aboard the ship. My inner monologue begins. This looks like a team meeting of Starbucks baristas before they start their shift at 6 a.m. What? Take off that sensitive hat. Please, man, give me a chance here. Yeah, I know. You're all disappointed. You lost the factory ship. No, don't go look for someone to hug. No. And it goes on and on like that. Frequently during the show, they will cut away to incidents where they actually sight whales in the water, in the wild. The reaction of the crew is pure unintentional comedy. If you go to work, dear listener, and gush over anyone in your office the way that these people gush over whales, you will be immediately terminated. No questions asked. You don't get to box up your stuff. Your ass is done. HR will immediately call security. You will be escorted off the premises. In the write-up of your dismissal, it will just say, in bold red script across the form, sexual harassment. The fawning is disgusting. But even after all of this, I find myself rooting for these people. They're not wrong. They're just douchey. Moreover, watching them in action, taking on this whaling fleet, again, pure unintentional comedy. It's like a morally superior Keystone Cops routine. You're rooting for them to be successful, and yet you're frustrated with them and with yourself, given their incompetence. Why am I rooting for these people? The answer is simple. Again, they're not wrong. They have a morally superior position. This internal struggle, this dichotomy, defines to me the entire environmental movement. This so-called debate about whether or not the Japanese are killing whales to provide them as food to sustain Japanese culinary tastes, it's obvious. This debate about whether or not man is contributing to global warming, there's no doubt. It's obvious. The issue isn't whether or not the environmentalist is correct or incorrect. It's often that the environmentalist is difficult to root for. What they don't realize is they're selling you on an idea. Have you ever walked onto a car lot and had a salesman approach you in dirty jeans, a flannel, beard, straggly, hair unkept, a hat on that basically said, "Punch me in the face"? No. That's a salesman. The salesman is not only selling you a car. The salesman is selling you on the idea of you being in that car, of owning that car. The environmentalist comes to you and says, "I'm morally correct. I'm factually correct. Accept me and accept my sensitive hat. I know I should be the bigger person. I know that I should accept what is morally correct, what is factually correct. But damn it, I have a hard time looking past that sensitive hat."
Act 2 Sports.
Hope springs eternal in the mind of every sports fan. Only one team in every league wins the championship. Therefore, there are countless sports fans in a hopeful mindset for the upcoming season. Are people then hopeful about the progress they're going to make in their job, the way the company they work for is run, and its ability to expand, to grow, and therefore offer more economic opportunity? Do people feel this hope in their interpersonal relationships with their family, their friends, their spouses, that those relationships are going to grow, to get stronger over the years? Are people hopeful about their political leaders, the future of their country, that their community, that their state, that their nation is being led by the best and the brightest? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Sports is a curious love affair that we have. Again, if your team didn't win the championship, you are in a hopeful mindset. But what are you hopeful for? You still have the same incompetent boobs running the team that you did last year. You have the same incompetent boobs that own the team as you did last year. You have the same incompetent boob that's the commissioner of the league. Why are we so hopeful? Why are we placing so much hope in people who have failed us more than any politician, any member of our family or any of our circle of friends, and certainly any employer that we've ever worked for? I set this forth. I submit this to you in light of the fact that the New York Knickerbockers are above 500 in the National Basketball Association. That's right. The New York Knicks are not below 500. Their record is above 500. Is this the hopes of the New York Knickerbocker fan being rewarded, showing a payoff? What has truly changed? The owner is still a complete boob. There are no real superstars on the team, although it is a roster that one looks at and doesn't really hate. What's different? The East is different. That is a tactful way of saying that the East is, in the immortal words of our last president, a shithole. It's not a shithole country, it's a shithole conference. Bad basketball teams playing bad basketball. This brings me to my point about hope. Hope has but one payoff: success. It's not that you hope that the team is going to be better. It is that you are hopeful that the team will be competitive with the teams that it has to play. Hope for the sports fan has a very low bar. I can sympathize with the hope manifest in a sports fan based not on truly performance, but on the success against inferior or equal opponents. How? Because I am a University of Tennessee football fan. For the ignorant, let me explain. For years, the University of Tennessee played some of the best teams in the country, both in their conference schedule and in their non-conference schedule. Tennessee needed the exposure for the non-conference schedule so that they can recruit nationally. And playing in the SEC, you can't help but run into top 10 teams year in and year out. As any honest Tennessee fan would tell you, Tennessee routinely stumbled against the Florida, the Alabama, even the Georgia of yesteryear. Where did Tennessee get strong? Where did they feast? Where were they able to turn around their season? Well, against the Little Sisters of the Poor, the South Carolina, the Kentucky, and thank you, Jesus, the Vanderbilt. Ah, the Vanderbilt. If bowl eligibility was ever in question, the Vanderbilt. In this way, growing Tennessee teams, mediocre Tennessee teams, and sometimes even bad Tennessee teams were able to go on a winning streak, finish the season strong, and go into bowl season with that kernel of hope. These teams weren't ready to compete for a national championship, but they were better than the teams that they were playing. Teams which were historically bad. I understand the mentality of a sports fan arguing with himself or herself that things are going to turn around and things are getting better after watching their team eke out victories against a team that you know isn't good. Yes, the Knicks are above 500, but the Eastern Conference is at best a train wreck. How long will the Knicks stay above 500? I don't know, and I don't care because I can't watch that basketball. It is a terrible product to consume. Wake me up when they've lost in the first round of the playoffs, if they even make the playoffs. Ask the fans from the National Football Conference East in the NFL about a quality product and being above 500. That'll be a very short conversation. In other hope news, J.J. Watt was traded to the Arizona Cardinals from the Houston Texans. Rather than go on about how hopeful Arizona Cardinals fan is, let's talk about the second thing that the city of Houston has been exporting over the course of the last year. No, it's not oil, it's hope. Hope, hope, hope. Look at the three major sports franchises in the city of Houston. People being paid millions and millions of dollars have systematically destroyed each of those three franchises. The place is so toxic, it looks like the Exodus in the Bible. That's how many athletes want to leave the city of Houston right now. Hope springs eternal unless you're a Houston fan. And then at least you can be happy that you've provided so much hope and enjoyment to other people. But no sports fan truly gives a shit about that. Sitting here at the bottom, looking up from every sports franchise that I root for, I can't help but continue to piss on that flame of hope. Where else is that flame burning? In college basketball, it's Gonzaga, and in the National Hockey League, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Gonzaga has not lost a college basketball game. Gonzaga has gone out and played a number of high-quality teams. Of course, they played those high-quality teams at the beginning of the college basketball season, a season marred with problems addressing the coronavirus. Numerous teams lost games. Numerous teams couldn't play at full strength. But just as we saw in the NFL, a number of college basketball teams are playing themselves into game shape. They've had the time to gel as a team. They've had the time to coordinate their offense, their defense. These teams know what they're doing. They know how to execute their game plan. They can now actually begin to scout and game plan other teams. This does not bode well for Gonzaga. They simply don't play a high level of competition in their conference. People may want to get excited about this Gonzaga team going undefeated in the regular season. That's fine. But because people's memories are short, I'm here to educate, to remind. In 2003, the St. Joe's men's basketball team went undefeated in the regular season. They were a very good basketball team. They lost in the Elite Eight of that NCAA tournament. Trial by fire, folks. Playing top-notch competition week in and week out is a trial by fire that refines the best teams and enables a team to win a national championship. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps this is the year that Gonzaga is going to be able to go all the way. But I don't see it. They can get a 1 seed. They can get the overall number 1 seed. They're still going to run into the Big Ten. They're still going to run into the Big 12. They're still going to run into some of the best teams in the country that have been tested in that trial by fire. I piss on your hope, Gonzaga fan. Your time may be coming, but it's not going to be in 2021. Speaking of your time may be coming, the Toronto Maple Leafs built a promising young team 3 or 4 years ago, slowly have grown into the best team in the NHL. The best record in the NHL, the highest scoring offense in the NHL. And yet, I'm skeptical. Why? Because the NHL, in light of COVID, in light of the precautions that the league needed to take in order to have a season in the era of COVID, divided teams up by geography and then allowed those teams to only play each other. Statistically, Toronto is the best team in the National Hockey League. But they only play a limited number of teams, those teams being geographically all in Canada. If Toronto wins the President's Trophy for having the most points in the season, can anyone really expect them to win the Stanley Cup Will they be the odds-on favorite? From a personal standpoint, I'd actually like to see the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. It would be good for the league. And God bless, they haven't won a Stanley Cup since I believe the mid-'60s, if not the late 60s. They've been terrible for a long time. Toronto fan is due. Yes, the basketball team won a championship, and people were happy about that. But Toronto, as a city, is a hockey town. I'm rooting for you, Toronto. But for the purposes of the segment today, I piss on your hope.
Act 3 Puritanism.
I'm a judgmental prick. That's right. I don't mind admitting it. Why am I so willing to volunteer as much? Well, because I'm just like you. I'm just like you. We are all judgmental pricks. It's one of the strange paradoxes of human existence. The one thing that we all have in common. And yet, instead of uniting us, by its very nature, it divides us. Even the most enlightened of us is going to struggle with judgment. Judgment of ourselves, judgment of others. This is a part of who we are. It's not specific to any point in time. It's not specific to any race or religion. It's not specific to any age group. It's not specific to any geography. But there are those of us that rather than wrestle with judgment, embrace it, relish it, cherish it. Yes, these are the Puritans. The Puritan. They come in many forms, many fashions. But I want to speak specifically this week about a new kind of Puritan. A Puritan that has grown from the world's coronavirus pandemic. Yes, that's the mask Puritan. Those that sit in judgment of others based on wearing a mask. Now let me be clear. I hate wearing the mask. Don't like it. Don't want to wear it. Do I? Of course. Uneducated simpletons want to argue over the science of the mask. I can't read the data. I don't understand the specific terminology, the scientific lingo about masks, about molecules going through certain levels of fabric, the permeability of the particles. Frankly, neither does anyone who objects to the mask or who supports the mask. If you say to me, there's a chance, we don't have the scientific data to support as much, but there's a chance that by wearing a mask, you will help limit the spread of the coronavirus to some of the most vulnerable parts of the population. Like a petulant child ordered to take out the garbage, I'm going to string that bag up, I'm going to lift it out of the trash can, I'm going to place it in the trash bin. Do I think everyone should participate, should carry this burden? Sure, of course. Am I going to go out of my way to shame people in public, on social media? No, I'm not. The Puritan mindset has always been curious to me. It is the mindset of a follower. The Puritan will tell you that they are leaders, that they have standards, that they have a moral code. This all, of course, is nonsense. Puritans routinely contradict themselves. Puritanism is no more than enjoying the opportunity to think that you have the moral high ground and then to hold other people to that standard. Think about it. What are they really saying to you? Are they telling you that you need to wear a mask? What they're really saying is, hey, all of us have been told what to do, and you're not doing it. Those aren't the words that they use, but truly that's the message that they convey. And my question to them is, why are you so willing to be told what to do? Why are you so willing to follow? Again, you can't articulate in any meaningful way the scientific support, the data surrounding any mask mandate. You have decided to follow. And now that you have decided to follow, you want to be able to order other people to follow as you do. Although Puritanism is routinely cast in a light of moral superiority, it's just another form of power. People trying to exert power over you. Although I disobey, What I truly understand is the Puritan is a necessary evil. Puritanism has its place in the universe like anything else. While the Puritan will never see the value in those that aren't so willing to follow, I see the value in the Puritan. And although I see the value in Puritanism, it's hard to be sympathetic to the Puritans. I'll wear my mask, I'll grin and bear it, but I refuse to eat shit. I refuse to support the shaming of anyone who doesn't want to wear a mask. We look at pictures of ourselves from high school or college 20 years later, and sometimes we feel like we're looking at a stranger. I wonder if the mask Puritan in 20 years is going to look at themselves and see a stranger. Hopefully, they will. Unfortunately, they will probably feel justified, even 20 years later, in what they did and said. Aging is inevitable. Growth isn't. This is why I don't vote. A podcast.